Um, Hello, everyone. My talk actually would be a bit complementary to the previous session. The guys from Unity told us about what they do on their side, and I would talk to you how exactly we implement these things in our game. And our game called War Robots, it is a mobile shooter game. It was released more than 4 years ago. And right now, we are actually a pretty popular game in this store. We have more than 100 million installs. And let me tell you a bit about the gameplay, actually. This is a mid-core game where players pilot giant robots equipped with various weapons, machine guns, cannons, missiles, flamethrowers, and our studio right now is very focused on delivering PC and console-like style gameplay to mobile games. So I think that my talk would be most useful to those of you who are making similar games, and if you're making casual or hyper-casual games, I think there should be a bit different approach, but still I hope it can be useful to those of you also. We have about 1.5 million of players piloting robots in our game every day. So the game is pretty popular. It is present on iOS, Android, and Windows platforms. And right now, the conditions of the market are pretty different from the market that we started 4 years ago. At that time, there were little to none competition in that segment because most of the games were oriented towards casual gamers. Right now there are a lot of shooters here on mobile market, and right now we have to worry and survive somehow. But still, our game is IAP heavy. We mostly monetize through purchasing IAPs in our game, and the decision of adding video ads to the game was not easy for us because we actually received a lot of feedback from our players like, wow, your gameplay is nice, it's very cool, and you don't have video ads in your game, and it's such a rarity these days, and we were thinking that we were doing fine without ads. We perceived it as a kind of a feature of our game. But still, I must admit, there were some greedy fellas among us in the company that looked into the market. They looked into other games, and they've seen very successful cases, like, for instance, Walking Dead, No Man's Land, Cats, the game by Zeptalab, that was monetizing mostly through video ads. And we actually decided maybe we should try to do that. We had a lot of debates about that. We were arguing whether we should or we shouldn't do that, and we came up with a list of the pros and cons of that approach of changing the monetization model. So the first thing actually is pretty obvious, it's money. In most cases, when you add video ads, you want to get a revenue increase, and most of the game developers actually want to increase revenue from their games, I hope. Additionally, it's also beneficial for your players because actually when you're adding video ads, your advertiser pays for your player. And in this way, players can get access to some premium content that was in the game, but it wasn't available for them because they don't do purchases in the game, for instance. And for you it is also nice because they try it, maybe they buy it later, and it is a way to increase your paying user base, which is more sustainable business model. When you rely on a smaller share of your audience in terms of financials, it's not very nice. If it's bigger, it's more stable for you. There are cons as well. Just a second, I'll switch. You can see that actually the list of cons is bigger, but that's not by the meaning, but by the size. The first thing is actually, you're adding ads to your game, and ads are pretty annoying for players. I don't know any person who wants to spend his lunch break for 30 minutes like, okay, I'm gonna eat quickly for 5 minutes and then I'll watch for the same commercial for 25 minutes over and over again. That's usually not the thing that happens. And when you add ads to your game, actually players spend less time playing your game when they are in the app. And that could be a problem because they don't divide advertising networks, some other stuff and your game. They perceive it as a whole, and if they see the ad they don't like, they perceive it like this is the problem of the game actually. And that could lead actually to the drop in players' engagement. One of the most important things is that our in-game economy changed a lot after we added video ads. It was additional source of income for our players, and for us, we had to think how they need to spend those money, those resources they have in the game, because if they don't, they will have, your economy will have an inflation, and that could be a problem, you know. It could cannibalize other sources of revenue for you. Finally, there are production costs. You have game designers, coders, QA testers, artists, all they could do different things, and while they're doing this feature, for instance. But still, after thinking over this list, we decided to try. Why don't we try, right? And the first thing we did, we researched the topic a bit. It's very general information. I think you already know that, and guys from Unity already told a lot about it. There are only about 4 to 5% of players that purchase in-apps in games. It's roughly the average. Different apps have different percentages. Some have bigger, some have smaller, but still, on the average, it's 4 to 5%. And I think in 2016, Unity conducted a research with interviewing players, and more than 70% of players actually told that they like video ads, they prefer video ads as the main source of monetization for games. We found out on our own skin, on our own experience, that actually rewarded videos perform better than other types, like interstitial videos, offer walls, playable ads. Rewarded videos bring more, are perceived by players as the most valuable thing, and as a consequence, they bring more money to developers. What players usually like in video ads in games? First of all is high rewards. They like being rewarded with some valuable resources to them, or some valuable features they need to get. Oh, I'm sorry. When they receive access to premium content and features they don't usually get while playing the game for free, it is perceived as a valuable thing. Additionally, it could be a source of information about other games. I don't know how about you, but some players are actually watching video ads just to see the new things that came on the market. So it is a way to know about new games released sometimes. What they actually don't like is when ads distract them from some scenario of their behavior. For instance, they want to the hangar to upgrade robot or to install a new weapon, and at that time you just showing them interstitial ad. If you do that, then most likely they would be perceived as an annoying thing. That would be a problem for you and for players. So about watching the same ad over and over again, I already told that. That's pretty obvious, and players don't like that also. So somehow you need to limit the amount of video ads you show to a player per day. Because if you're showing them infinitely, then it could be not beneficial for you. The conversion rate drops actually drastically after the third watch in a row. And also, it would be bad for your players because when they watch ads a lot, they don't play your game. Small rewards are a bad thing, and if they're perceived as meager and insignificant thing, then most likely your players will drop out of using that feature. And if there is no way to get the desired type of reward they want to get, That's very important to analyze and to understand what features exactly players want to get out of a game. In our case, for instance, the best sellers things are robots and weapons. And players spend most of their time upgrading those things they get to win battles. As you probably have heard, I talked a lot about rewards, and I think that this is a very important issue. Because this is the main factor that could split between success of integrating that feature and the defeat of it. So players actually, the complexity of the thing is that players get rewarded per view, and in most cases you are getting rewarded per install of the advertised app, for instance. There are, of course, brand commercials and other stuff when you also are rewarded per view, but that's not the main case you usually use. That brings you to the problem that you need somehow to understand how much views will be converted to installs, and that parameter is called eCPM usually in marketing. Marketing guys know it well. I'm a game designer guy. I'm a bit new to all that terminology. But still, the thing that I need to know is that a reward too high will cause inflation in your game because players will get too much resources out of this feature. And if you're rewarding your players too low, then it won't motivate them to watch ads. So it is a very narrow path, and you need somehow to drive between it. It's like moving between Scylla and Charybdis. It's a difficult thing. But there is a hint that you can actually do that helps you. Is if you think of the reward for the video ad as some kind of a desired cheat, as if your game is free to play, then most likely it has some boring stuff for your players. There is some grinding, resource grinding, for instance, or some other stuff. And in that case, you need to offer your players something that will cheat them and shortcut those boring things. So we've made a list of requirements we actually used for the design document. This feature has to be useful for different player segments, for all of them, for higher level players, low level players, for newcomers, for those who play a game for a long time. It is also has to be available from the very beginning. This is very important because actually video ads are good when you have a big volume, when you have a lot of players. Then you can generate a lot of watches and a lot of installs converted from watches. So actually if you're, for instance, don't show ads to your players from day one, for us, we have day one retention like 40%, so 60% of the first day players won't see ad, and we probably will lose profit on that. So we need to show ads to them just right from the start, and it should be perceived to them by them as a useful thing, actually, something that helps them. And it's a tricky thing, challenging. As I told before, that watching ads sequentially should be limited because there are problems in engagement in that case, and there are problems in conversion to installs. And we've calculated for our game, for your game the number could be different, but for our game it's like 2 or 3 cents we can give a player per view in real money equivalent. So it's not a big reward, but it has to be valuable just because of the type of reward the player gets. We've divided video ads into different channels. There are 5 of them actually, and that's the first one. The first channel is the increased reward per battle. At first we actually wanted to make to double rewards per battle, but we couldn't do that because our game designers that were balancing this feature actually calculated that it would be too much for high level players. You see, in our game, the amount of resources you get from the battle depends on the skill of the player. If the player is skilled, if he makes a lot of damage to the enemy team, in that case, he'll get a lot of rewards. And if we will double it, in this case, they will get too much resources. So we actually decided to offer it occasionally, not all the time. We have probability adjusted on the back end of showing that offer to a player. And when it is shown, after watching ad, he can increase his reward by 50%. It is also a nice thing that this channel is actually linked to our core gameplay. So players can't all the time watch ads. They have to play battles to get these rewards and to watch ads. The next channel is the quick upgrade system. We have a lot of upgrading stuff for our players, and it takes a while to upgrade things. So basically, they're trading 20 minutes of upgrading some robots for just half a minute of watching an ad, and it's a pretty good deal for them, especially if they are low-level players. Because at that time, at the beginning of the game, most of the upgrades are less than 20 minutes, so they get the upgrade instantly. This channel and all the other channels I'll show after that are integrated into the system where players get only 4 charges per day. And to get one more charge, they have to play battles. Each battle gives them one more charge. And in that case, we link the system of video ads to our core gameplay, so they can't watch ads ad infinitum. They need, over and over again, they need to play battles to get additional charges of watching ad. The third thing is actually a task completion system. Personally, I don't like this system in our game because it's a bit obsolete and it offers players quests that sometimes are boring. It's, I know, it's like, it reminds me of my granny. It loves you, but it gives you a lot of boring chores and stuffs. But you don't want to do that. You want to get right to the reward, right? And actually we decided, why don't we do that? We will offer players to watch ad and to get right to the reward, skipping the quest by itself. And that actually worked. Before that, we had the button to change the quest if you don't like it, but we've substituted this button with just watching an ad, and it worked actually. Now players don't need to change quests they don't like because they can just watch an ad and get the reward instantly. The fourth channel is the free black market system. It is a gacha system. Probably you know that loot boxes got a lot of heat on the internet these days, mostly after the Star Wars 2 Battlefront scandal. But still, if you look at the data, players actually use that channel a lot. They don't say it on the internet, but they like this channel actually. Yeah. Finally, there are supply crates, which is a regular reward that player gets after a certain period of time. In our case, it is 4 hours, and the rewards depend on the league the player is. If he is in the higher league, he'll get higher rewards. And the offer is that you can reduce that time by 30 minutes by just watching an ad, and so it's also valuable for the players. All these channels I've summarized here on the next slide for you. There is a daily cap on video ads for watching, but it's not fixed cap. It's shiftable. If you play a lot of battles, you get more video ads charges. And players actually treat these charges as an additional resource they have. There are different tactics how they use it. Some like to spend it all on upgrades. Some people try to skip the quest because it is a way for them to get hard currency in our game, to get some really nice weapons for their robots. And some channels like the increased battle rewards are not integrated into that system because we couldn't do that, and they are offered occasionally. The final summary here is that video ads feature is available right after the tutorial. It was not an easy decision for us, because actually we were afraid that we will distract our players from learning the game, and in this case it will lead to drop in retention early. But what we've got, this feature is released about a year ago. What we actually have got is that there are no drops in the tutorial funnel at all. Players don't leave your game just because you have video ads. That's the thing that we've learned. And actually we've got a lot of positive community feedback from our players. They like this feature, and some of them were complaining that when it was released only on iOS and Android. And people who played on Facebook Game Room were actually blaming us, why didn't you do that on Game Room? We released it later, not from the beginning, but still we've added this feature to them. About a half of Android players and 40% of players on iOS watch rewarded videos in our game every day. And that's a pretty nice result for us. And what is even better is that the higher the level, the bigger the share. This means that actually engaged players who like your game the most are finding this feature very useful to them. Paying users also watch ads even more than non-paying, which could be surprising, especially if you're doing a casual game. Because a lot of casual games have their monetization built on just the presumption, just give me $5 and you won't see ads in my game at all. And this happens a lot of time, but in our case, if you think of it from the other perspective, paying users are most likely people who like your game the most. And they treat it as a hobby, and they want to get every benefit they can get from the game to get better in it. So if you look from this perspective, then it's pretty reasonable. We've got about 6% increase of revenue after the release, and later it was 10% due to some optimization we've made. I talk about it later. There was insignificant cannibalization, and let me expand on this, this sentence. When I say insignificant, I mean that actually we haven't found any, but I suspect that there should be some, because it's a very strange thing when you add some revenue source to a game and it doesn't influence all the other sources. So most likely there is some, but we haven't found it. So I say insignificant. And there is absolutely no churn cited in our game from that feature. Again, players don't leave your game just because you have video ads. That's not a problem for them at all. Here is the quick channel breakdown. How exactly players use different channels. You can see that the increased reward is not very used, especially at the beginning, right after the release. And that was the reason. The reason behind this was actually that we offered it to them very rarely. We couldn't offer it to them often. So that was our problem. You can see also that the free black market chest has dropped a bit, and this is because the changes in our economy system. Your in-game economy influences those channels, and free black market just had a bit drop in the significance for our players. Also, you can see that the supply crate skip wasn't present at the release, so there is no blue bar. And now about optimization. We actually nerfed the battle rewards right even before the release. I told about that. And we thought, returning to this slide, we actually thought, what can we do to make increased battle rewards, to show them more often to our players? And then we decided, okay, we have the same probability for high-level players and for low-level players. Why don't we separate this? So we've made different backend adjustments, and so that actually low-level players who don't get a lot of rewards in the game they are shown that offer more frequently than high-level players. There is a difference in probabilities of showing that offer to high-level and low-level players, which led to the insignificant increase in soft currency giveaways from that feature. But at the same time, we had a 10% increase in profits from that channel, which is also a very nice thing. Now, before that, you could possibly think that this feature is kind of an easy thing. Just do that and grab your cash. But that's not true. And I will tell you about one issue that we've screwed up. We have a particular category of players that are called levers, and that are the people who actually want to drop in the rating system so they could play battles against easier opponents. And that behavior is very damaging to other players because when someone leaves the battle, they are left in the minority. They are left like 6 people against 5 people. And that's a problem. So we penalize players for that, for doing that. But what we forgot, that actually you get 1 charge after each battle. Yeah? So people started to leave battles to farm charges. And we've seen that on our analytics data. We've seen that the amount of levers drastically increased after releasing this feature. So we had about a month of thinking. Actually, it was a very big period, and I think it could be done earlier. But we've added additions to our penalizing system that actually levers don't get charges for watching ad. And that worked. After we did that, the amount of levers dropped to previous level than before. So, going to the takeaways. If you have a game with a large player audience and it's free to play and you're considering whether you should or you shouldn't do video ads, I think that probably you should try. Because for us, it was a very win-win situation. Our players loved it and we loved it because our revenue increased. And I'm talking about millions of dollars annually. So it was a nice addition to our game. Don't be afraid to show ads to your paying users. I know that some games actually don't do that, but remember, these are your most loyal people, and if you do it nicely, if you offer them nice rewards for video ads, they will gladly watch them. And be cautious when choosing reward sizes. Again, I think that this particular aspect is the most tricky one and the most important for that feature. The reward shouldn't be too high or too low, it should be just right. What is it just right? You have to analyze it in your game, and you have to analyze your players' needs, what they want to get from your meta, from your game resource system. You should always try to give your players a choice of different channels, a variety of them, because you see, if I'll go back to that slide, if we did, for instance, just free black market chess channel, we've got only about 30% of all the players that actually watch videos right now. So one channel doesn't work for everybody. They need a variety for them. And don't forget to add new channel when you release new features and your game develops, your game grows. At that time, you should always think, maybe I should maybe it would be valuable to your players to add video ads here, for instance. Of course, you should differentiate between player segments to optimize, and there was a presentation about that before, that you need to personalize the experience, and that's exactly the thing. So basically, that's all. Thank you. And if you have any questions, just ask me something right now. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Great talk, my brother. My name is Lex. I'm a game developer, white label AR as a studio. This is probably one of the best talks because it really combines the balance of playability and revenue. Mm-hmm. And you really talked about essentially creating the depth in games so players can keep coming back and developers can keep getting revenue. If you were to start from scratch, right, create a system like this after everything you've learned, is there a template now? Is there something on the asset store? Is there a way? Is there a way you would recommend to get started from scratch that is kind of bringing in some of these best practices?
Okay, that's a nice question. Actually, I think that if I started this system from the scratch, first of all, I would try to, it depends really on the game, right? But in our game, I would make it more useful in some channels are actually not offering enough value. And you can see that in the channel breakdown that I've seen. So I would make some channels more valuable and make the other channel less valuable. So as I told before, it's more about balancing the reward players get. I think that's the most important thing, and I would recommend to spend a lot of time trying to find out which reward is the best for your players. So.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I noticed that, right? So every platform sort of has a different behavioral demographic, right? So like Android is the most ready for this, and I see that a lot of the VR in the future is going to be driven by this freemium model. Like you see the Oculus Go right now is sort of right there where the store is not really, people aren't buying the titles out, right? But they're getting the free. What about reviews? I've seen a lot of, there's like an asset on the asset store. I think it's mobile something. It's pretty good, and it has a reviews, an app review kind of template where you incentivize app reviews or incentivize the timing of app reviews, essentially. Is that something you consider?
I'm not sure that I understand you correctly, but do you mean that video ads somehow could influence the reviews of your users in the store, no?
No, yeah, not really, but you can time the ad, right? So let's say you give them this big crate, and then you ask for the review, right? After when they're super happy. Like, I mean, at this point, what you're really doing is you're micromanaging the psychology of the user, right? You want them to get the reward, not grind too much.
That's absolutely true, but I think that should stick more to your rate us window. I mean, rate us event that you're trying to give to your player. Maybe you should, in some cases, include the exemptions from that. Like if I've shown a video ad and player actually doesn't like it, that's a tricky thing how to determine this situation. But if you somehow manage to determine it, then in this case probably you don't need to show it to them. But what we did actually, that's a bit different topic, but what we did for our rate us system is that we analyze the player's performance in the battle, and we are trying to show that window right after they have a very nice performance in the battle. So when they won the battle and they are in the first place, then we're showing here, rate us please.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it's really the best of the best. Tell me about, what do you think in terms of the future, right? We're talking about like AR and VR. Where do you see ads there? Where do you see the incentivization? Do you see it kind of like Pokemon, where you're going to find branded content, or how do you think players will be incentivized in the future?
That's I don't think that I can actually answer this question as a specialist, but I have a personal opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that ads are very difficult for AR and VR, and you need to somehow implement it into the game. Like, in Walking Dead, for instance, they had a movie theater. So if you have an AR, VR level, for instance, and you have a screen there, you can show ads right there on the screen.
Oh, it's beautiful, man. It's such a great talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Hello. A couple questions. One's quick, and is that how do you detect inflation in a game? Do you have a way of detecting that?
Yes, we actually have a way to detect the inflation. Do you mean we have an analytics tool that shows us players' earnings on average, and they are segmentized on for different levels of players. So if we see the increase of earnings, then we also need to see the increase in spendings. If it's not true, then in that case we did something wrong.
Okay, that makes sense. Second question is, you talk about channels. How do you define a channel?
What I mean by channel is that it is a way of spending a charge of watching an ad for some kind of benefit player gets. And the benefits could vary, so this is what I mean by saying the channel. The particular benefit they get from watching an ad. So if, for instance, some players like to upgrade and some players like to get free loot boxes, for instance.
I got it, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. Some of the developers on my team hate ads. So just so I can convince them, can you give us an idea on how much ads added to your baseline revenue as a percentage?
You mean how much ads players actually view per day?
No, like in terms of actual money coming in, how much did it add based on, if you were making 100 before, after ads you were making 105, 110?
I've actually, it was on the slides, we had about 10% increase.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you for the very informative session. My question is regarding a slide where you cited that rewarded videos outperformed other forms of ads, including playables. Can you clarify in what sense?
Okay, we actually have tried all of them. No, I'm lying to you, we haven't tried interstitials, but that's the thing. We actually got the eCPM. It's a very, it is available data that eCPM on interstitial videos usually is twice as low than on the rewarded videos. But we also tried playable ads, and it actually didn't work out for us at all. The conversion rates were the lowest from different things, and the problem is that our game is very big, and it is a 3D game, and we actually can't do the small playable ad that provides, for instance, the experience that is shown to our players. But that's, when I was answering you, I understood that I'm talking about playable ads of our game. And we actually mirrored that. We decided that if we have the lowest conversion on our playable ads, in that case it won't be a good thing to add them to our game as a source of...
Okay, so it's in terms of conversion rate,
Yeah.
whereas I guess I understood it as playable ads underperformed in terms of player engagement with your game, within your game. So we haven't tested that yet.
But do you mean...
like other games,
do we
playable
show
ads in your
playable
game?
ads in our game, right? Yes, we do that, because actually that's the thing that is shown by our network, ad network, and it shows, we can choose the different things there, but videos are totally fine there. I mean, if you're trying to advertise your game, in that case, playable ads are not a good thing for us. It didn't turn out for us.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hey, just a quick question about, you mentioned that you had a 10% increase in revenue as a result of the ads. What total revenue did that account for then afterwards for you guys? Like, it's not like you had like, suddenly 90% of it was IAP, 10% of it was ads? Was it?
Actually, it was like that.
Oh, interesting.
It was completely like that, yes.
Oh, okay.
Surprised before that, we were very IAP heavy, and all of our money came from IAPs. So, yeah.
So after the fact, 90% was still IAP.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Basically, what the thing that drives the most our players to purchases is buying power, to increase their advantage in battles. And that's the thing that we do. We stick to the traditional model of that, but we just added a new source and it worked.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, so you mentioned how the players are being rewarded per the view, but you, the developer, are rewarded for the install.
Yeah.
So what is your rate of the install rate versus?
Right now I don't have the data, but the eCPM is, I think, on the average, it's about $7, I think, something like that. It's an effective cost per 1,000 of views.
Okay, so for every 1,000 views.
Yeah, we get about $7.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an average.
Hi, I have a quick question. Is your market mainly Russia?
No.
Oh, okay. Do you know what your biggest market is?
Yes, the biggest market is US, and after that is Japan, China, and
Okay.
Asia.
So it went from, it was 90% IAP and 10% ads, with your biggest markets being in the
Yeah.
US at that time? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Last question.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. You said that you have different channels, right? And
Yeah.
so what I'm maybe confused about is when you added these ads, did you create an entirely new channel that people can spend what they earn through ads on, and the in-app purchases, whatever they're getting from in-app purchases, is a completely different channel, and you can't get that through the ads? Because a lot of games tend to combine those, right? You get premium currency, the exact same kind of premium currency for both. But
No,
it seems like that's maybe why you were able to keep all your IAP as well. But
Actually, different channels are not just about getting the different resources. It's not that from that channel you get only silver and from that channel you get gold. It means that, for instance, for me right now, it's very important to upgrade my robot to next level. And I'm going to spend all my charges to upgrade my robot quickly, to decrease time for that. And for instance, if I'm the player that tries to farm hard currency, then I'll go for the quests that give me hard currency and try to skip them. So that's what I meant.
So I guess what just to clarify that, it does seem very strange that when you introduce ads, that you would keep all of your in-app purchases. A lot of players would say, okay, I'm not spending anymore, I'm just going to watch ads. But if I'm understanding, you created different channels that you cannot get the same currency through IAP as you can through ads, or no? Or so, like, maybe just a simpler question: can you get the same currency, or get the same?
Yes, you can.
Through
You
both?
can get the same currency by watching an ad and by doing IAP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. So that's all. Thank you for the questions and thank you for listening.